What's good with your social media? It's your boy Nick Love and the K9 Proceeds, and welcome back. So now we're going to be talking about a video I seen on QBN channel titled The Pit Bull versus American Bully. And it's basically a breakdown of how the two dogs are different, even though they look the same, but with a twist, which is the person he felt is the face of each breed, but specifically the Pit Bull Terrier. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you stay up to date with all the Bulldog information I'm giving out every time I share a new video. And don't forget to hit the bell up top so we can scratch the win in the comment section for the first hour. Now, after watching QBN's video, I noticed that his thumbnail was pretty interesting. He had the differences between the American Pit Bull Terrier and the American Bully. But for his thumbnail, he actually used a picture of Mike Vick. It was a small one, but it was enough to catch my attention. I knew it would be nothing worthwhile, but it was still so intriguing that I decided to go ahead and click on it to see what he was actually talking about. Cause see, this dude, he doesn't dabble in pit bulls, he dabbles in bullies. Like, this is a bully page, this is a bully person. But for this particular reason, he decided to speak about pit bulls because it was in his realm of the bullies as well. Now, in this video, he wasn't 100% wrong at all. He gave a lot of interesting facts. Now, some of the dates was off a little bit. It was small nuances that people who actually deal with pit bulls, they would know the difference. But all in all, he actually did a good job on what he was saying as far as the pit bulls go. Even though whatever he was wrong about, I wasn't caring about that. I was more concerned about how he was able to capture Mike Vick as the face of the dog sport, which he is not. This is what caught my attention. It was because the thumbnail he posted with the video, it will make someone think that this particular person is the face of that particular sport, which he isn't. Because the people who actually dabble in that sport at that particular time, they all knew for a fact that Mike Vick was a blip on the radar. He was a small firecracker that pretty much never really lit off amongst a big explosion. Only thing that made him a big explosion was the fact that he was actually famous and everyone knew him. This is what made that individual blow up so big in the world of that animal sport, because he was playing a sport that America watches. He was the face of that particular sport at that particular time. And once he got caught doing something that was at that time a misdemeanor, it blew up extremely big. I can say that because before he ended up getting caught and being what the media decided they wanted to make the face of that dog sport, he was actually such a small person that other individuals who were extremely big in that particular sport, they got caught doing that exact same thing, and they also had to do the exact same time, if not more, than what he done. Only thing is, they were not big enough in the eyes of society to change a law. Mike Vick was. He was big enough to actually make a law change, because before Mike Vick happened to go through what he went through with that particular sport, it was considered to be a misdemeanor. No different from jaywalking, no different from not paying a ticket, which was also a misdemeanor as well. That was the height of what that sport would get you, is a ticket. And sometimes would get you jail time depending on whatever other charges was around that. I know this here because when I was coming up as a youngster, I seen it happen, left and right in the environment where I was at, which is pretty much the urban community. And when I was coming up, I was noticing that people that was older than me, they was bringing those dogs into town from wherever they got them from, which I didn't know at that particular time where they was getting them from. But when they was getting those dogs, they was getting those dogs from people that did not look like us. When I would ask, where to get this dog from, they would always inform me, I went to the white boys. I went to the white boy. Everybody at that particular time in the 90s, 80s and 90s, in the early 2000s, they was all getting their dogs from the white boys. Who were the white boys? At that time, I had no idea who they were. But I just knew that everybody in my area where I was living when I was young, they were always telling me, we went to the white boys. We went to the white boys. The white boys was apparently the best thing smoking in the 90s and the 2000s to get you a pit bull, because in the area where we lived at, people who wanted a pit bull, they never wanted it from their neighbors. because the neighbors was not giving them out or even selling them. So therefore, anybody who wanted to be a competitor in that particular dog sport, they had to go find the white boys. And the white boys usually always lived in the country. They lived out of state or even in state, but they was always in some country rural area with a lot of land and a lot of dogs. And so whenever you wanted to go get you a pit bull, you would go to the country area, wherever it was located at, find the white boys, because I mean, you pretty much had to know somebody to get next to them. And once you did, you would go to their yard and you see a plethora of dogs. And they had as much as you wanted. And they had whatever you wanted. And so when I'm seeing individuals think and see pit bulls and they see the dog sport of pit bulls, and the first person that comes to mind is Mike Vick, I know for a fact that they just don't know any more better than what media showed them, not social media. This is what TV media showed them, because you got to think about it. When this happened in the early 2000s, the internet was a baby. Nobody really cared too much to be on there a whole lot, and it was kind of like the Wild Wild West at that time. So nobody got a lot of their information from social media about anything. They got a lot of the information from the news, when it was actually pretty accurate in the 90s and the 2000s. So they was getting their information about what was happening around the world from the news. And when Mike Vick wound up breaking the news, everybody got the information through the news, not through the computer. And so fast forward to today, people sit and think that that dude is the face of that dog sport, which he actually isn't, because I'm willing to gamble anybody today. I'm willing to gamble all y'all who listen to me $100 to $15 that every dog, I think they said he had like 50 dogs or more. Let's just say 50 dogs. If that dude had 50 dogs, I'm willing to gamble you $100 to $15 that every single dog he got, if you look at their paperwork, because I'm sure all of them came with some type of paperwork, the names on those paperworks, you will not see his name, his kennel name, or no name that looks like him or close to it within the first 2 generations of no dog he had. But what you will see is a specific or a plethora of one particular name or multiple names stacked up top and bottom of somebody that doesn't look like him. That's where he got those dogs from. I can assure you, I don't know for sure, but I'm just willing to gamble, because I lived in the era at that time frame when I was listening to people that was older than me. They was going getting their dogs from the white boys. I'm willing to gamble that the names on those pedigrees of those dogs are of the dominant society. And if he was able to go get one dog from one person, which is the white boys, I'm pretty sure it wasn't just one white boy he was going to. I'm sure it was multiple white boys, AKA the good old boys, that he was able to get any animals he wanted because he had the money to do so. So he could go to any of these good old boys and find one or multiple dogs that he wanted, that he chose, that he would pay for, and bring them back. And I can assure you, the 1 or 2 of how many dogs he came back with, I'm willing to gamble you, like I said, $100 to $15, that it'll be a last name on all of those papers that do not have his name on it at all, period. I can assure you, he was getting his dogs from a specific breeder who was dabbling in that sport, or who was participating amongst that sport with breeding for it. Not Mike Vick. That dude was just a pawn in what was happening. He was only a player in the game, and from what I read on the social media, he didn't seem to be a good player at that. From what a lot of the blog sites said from back then, he seemed to be just more of a gambler than he was actual person who participated in the dog sport and being a competitor. Because a lot of the old blog posts I would read, they were saying that he was easy money, or he was an easy target. Even though he had all the money to go buy whatever dogs he wanted, or even probably the greatest dogs, people who knew about him before social media did, they considered him to be an easy target. So when you're sitting there saying that, no, the face of the dog sport is this particular black man who was a football star, I'm here to tell you it's not. Because I remember reading about people who he actually probably, don't know for sure, but may have gotten those dogs from, who were hella more prolific than he will ever be in that particular dog sport. I remember when they wound up getting in trouble, because when they wound up getting in trouble, just like how Mike Vick did before Mike Vick got in trouble, when they got in trouble, it would shut the whole dog community down, to where certain people would start hoarding the dogs they got from said person who has his last name all over their dogs. Or they would start dispersing of the dogs from said person who has his name all up and down their pedigrees. So when those individuals who was more prolific in that world through the magazines and books I would read, and whenever they got in trouble, it sent more of a shockwave into that particular community who was dabbling with that way more than what Michael Vick did. True enough, Mike Vick happened to him, it made it to where that community had to pretty much take that sport back underground where it started and where it belonged. But before he got in trouble with it, other people who has bigger names than him, it's no need for me to mention them, because if you don't know them already, I'm not going to tell it to you, but they are public knowledge because I've seen the court records of a lot of them, and they do not look like Mike Vick. They look like the dominant society. But if you look at what happened when they got in trouble, the people who was connected to them, they pretty much they didn't necessarily disperse, but they almost went extinct, because those people were way more important to that particular dog sport than Mike Vick was, because those people was actually providing consistent competitive animals for this sport consistently over and over. They were breeding for that, as to where Mike Vick was actually purchasing animals from those type of peoples. So when the source ends up getting in trouble, it puts a lockdown on the flow of animals coming to that sport. Mike Vick didn't make no lockdown or nothing when the sport came in. He just made it to where no other person before him did, which was he made it against the law as a felony. Because prior to him, it was just a misdemeanor. So when he was doing it at his particular time, it was a misdemeanor, but once he got in trouble, it became a felony. Now, he did something that nobody else had done before, which is he changed the law, which is none of the people who was way more important than him in that particular sport ever done that. They wasn't ever able to get something like that done. But what they did do was when they got in trouble, they put a halt as to what was going on with a specific line of animals with this person's last name. That's what happened when they got in trouble. But when Mike Vick got in trouble, he pretty much created a whole new law to stop certain things from going on. And I'm gonna be real with you, from me listening and reading magazines and certain books, Mike Vick was not the first superstar or first athlete to even get in trouble with the animals. He wasn't the first, nor was he the last. I can imagine that any of America's team can probably play banjo circles around Mike Vick. That's how I can sit and tell you that he wasn't the only one that was actually dabbling in that at that time or even after that time. He was just the most prolific one that happened to change a landscape of what that sport was, to make it to where, since it was so above ground, which it never should have been in the first place, because there's no reason why me as a 13, 14-year-old kid should have been able to see something like that or know of something like that when I was young. The underground had became above ground, and it started to become more than what it should be. It was in rap music, it was on rap videos, like it was above ground where it never should have been. And when he wound up getting in trouble, it made it to where it forced that to go right back underground, to where the people who I knew was doing that when I was younger, I didn't even see them no more. That's how I knew that everything had changed when I got of age. And the only information I know of it right now is based off of what I was reading in old magazines from like the 70s and the 80s and maybe the 90s that I had at that particular time. Everything changed once he wound up, coming to that infamous fame of what he became because of what he was into. But I'm just trying to tell y'all, he's not the face of this here. He will never be the face of this here. He was never that important in this particular sport, ever. He was pretty much just a fall guy for the media in general and for certain other things to happen because of him. He was never that important, because it was more people that was way more important than him that went through the ringer, but they didn't go through the media ringer. Because a lot of people who wound up getting in trouble who had bigger names than what he do, the media did not pick it up, nationally. The only media picked that up was just their local media, wherever it was from. It was usually like a small article. It wasn't nothing really big, because much as the world try to sit and say that they love animals, they don't necessarily care about them until everybody does. I've been around long enough to know that only people care about the animals is the people right next to it. The people who don't never see them, they don't care about them until you put them in their face. That's when they like to throw their hands up and sit and say, oh, we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. But if you don't never show it to them, they don't really care. And I've been able to see this all my life with any type of animals, and almost all of them, whether they're extinct animals, whether they're animals in the wild. Society as a whole doesn't care until somebody puts it in their face and tell them to care about it. And then when they do care about it, it's only for that 15 minutes. And they go right back to what they was doing. So this is just me, your boy Nick Love, and the K9 Proceeds. I'm trying to inform y'all that I know that you think that this person is prolific in this here and he's infamous, which he is, but he is not the face of this here. The face of this here is other people that look like the dominant society. That's who the face of this is. And if you don't know them, I refuse to sit and tell it to you because you don't care to know them any damn way. But until then, I'll holler at you boys later. Peace out.